Students, today you are all welcome because I am going to start a new topic, the new chapter number 7, control and coordination. We have completed lab processes and you are all advised to carefully study all the topics which taught to you, and best wishes for the previous topics which are completed now. And for today's this topic, that is the control and coordination, and for today's also, and I again wish you the best. You will do your best as far as possible. And now the students in the last or in the previous topics we have seen and read that life processes in the life processes we have seen how the living organism maintain their different activities and how the life will be sustained with the help of all those activities. Depending upon all those activities, we may decide that these objects are living, these bodies are living, and depending upon that activities, we can also decide whether the bodies are living, the objects are living or not living. Various criteria we have adopted for that reasons, and if I see that those criteria will be maintained by the organisms, by the body, by the object, that we call them living organism, like respiration, like nutrition, like breathing, like excretion, like transportation inside their body, etc., etc., etc. A complete organisms, a complete organization of the body, whether it organized in a very simple form or in a complex form. Each and every organisms, even the cell, has also the ability to respond according to the changing circumstances. That circumstances may be the external, and that circumstances may be the internal, inside the body, or from outside the body, that is the external environment. What are that changing? You will be noticed, or you have been observed in your everyday life. Something is very unique, that it is already operating in our body or in the body of the organisms. But if we can analyze them, then we will conclude that something systematically, something in a very controlled manner going on. Like when we are talking about the growth, we are talking about the growth in plants. What happened in this process? In this process in plant, we have noticed that there is a movement in the plant. There is a movement in the plant, and that movement led to growth. If from the seeds, if the seed will germinate and give the root system or the shoot system, what is this? This is the movement. From the seeds, there is a movement. The movement may be downward, the movement may be upward. Downward means under the soil, under ground development, and above the ground development, that is the shoot development. That is the shoot development. If this development, you will notice that development, and also this growth related with the movement. There is a process of growth in the plant body, but simultaneously in that process we have noticed that there is a part of the plant which are growing. May the part of the plant growing underground, may the part of the plant growing above the ground. So this is some examples for responses. Are due to responses what happens? In the animal cases, it is very apparent, very clear and quite noticeable that we are running, we show our activities for search of food. The animals show their activities for the search of food, for the search of a safe shelter, for the animal can move for the process of reproduction. So there are some responses, there are some activities shown. That activity may be related due to under certain circumstances in a very controlled manner. The cat is running behind the mouse. The dog is running behind the cat. What are these? In a garden, somebody is walking, and at that moment while somebody is walking, if a thorns barefoot, if we walking barefoot and thorns may touch to our toes, what will happen? May touch to our foot, what will happen? We pulled our foot, we pulled our leg, we pulled our toes immediately. What are these? These are the examples of responses with movement. That means in the body of the organisms, there is something in a very controlled and coordinating manner going on that can communicate, that can receive the message, that can perceive the changing. You are in the classroom. Suppose you are in the classroom, teacher is not present there. What you will do? At that time you loudly shouting, you are talking in a loud voice. But when the teacher will come, then what will happen? Even you are talking, even you are whispering, but at that time in a very controlled manner. That means you have perceived the circumstances, and according to the circumstances, according to the situations, you are giving your responses. If you are percepting, your perception is not only by listening, by viewing, but also something by smelling. If somebody touch you, at that time you also perceive. If any hot object put on our palm, if any cold object put on our palm, then we can perceive it that something is going wrong or something is going bad or good, etc. So these are the some things which are related with this topic, that is the control and coordination. In the body of the organisms, there is a system is present that control and coordinate all these activities. In these activities, there is some concrete area came to us, that is the ever changing environment, and according to ever changing environment there are responses. If we will elaborate it, then what we see here that in the body there are, in the organism's body organization, there are some parts that related, that is the receptor part, and that part communicate. What are the communication, where it communicate? It communicate to the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord. The brain and spinal cord. How it will communicate? What are the ways? What are the, in this system, what are the tissues? What are the system that, what is the system, which one is the system which allow to do so? We will look this one. This is just I giving some idea. So that means in the body, if ever changing environment and we can take a response, or any organism can take a response, that means there is a something in the body which can able to receive that ever changing situations, ever changing circumstances, or anything else that can compel to respond them. So that is the first thing is here, first point is the receptor. That means there are in the body, maybe the entire body itself, like the skin, act as a receptor, or maybe some organs of the body like ear, nose, tongue. Understand? So this is the receptor, but after receiving the perceptions, that stimulus, we will talk about the stimulus, that will communicate. Where it communicate? There are some places in the organism's body where it will communicate. Why it will communicate to that place? It will communicate to that place for sending the message. Why we are the organisms, other organisms communicate the stimulus or any message or any ever changing environment, situations and circumstances to that part of the body? As because that part of the body will decide how the organisms will respond against that type of the stimulus, or that type of the how it will decide it. It will decide it in the CNS, and after the decision there is a effector, that means responses. There are some muscles and the glands that will respond, that will give response. So that means there is a coordination between the organ which has received the message, which has received the stimulus, which has received the message, which has received the ever changing environmental situations, the circumstances, and that can communicate, that is communicated to the CNS, and that once again from the CNS it will be communicated to the effector organs like the muscles, like the glands, for the responses according to that. That all these things are in a very, very controlled manner. What are the system? Which system is related with this? All facts. That is the nervous system in the animal body, and the second important is the endocrine system that will secrete chemical substances, hormones, and the nervous system composed with the nervous tissue comprising the cells and neuron, and that can make up the entire nervous system. And from that nervous system, the communication possible with the help of the electrochemical impulses. We will look all these things here one by one separately. So now come to the next part of the introduction, and that is the in the beginning we have seen that organisms' responses may be related with the growth, like in case of the plant, but it is not in all the cases of the other organism. In all the organism it is not applicable. Understand? We can move, but that movement is not related with the growth. It will be discussed later on in the topic. In this topic, we should first understand about these things: a stimulus, irritability, response, nervous system, its importance, structural and functional unit of nervous system, that is the neuron. In today's lesson, we will learn each these things, and also there are some stimulus and their responses. But first we shall discuss about these things. Thereafter you will be in a better manner can understand the other aspect of this communication system that will, with the help of the nervous system and the nervous system and the second one is the endocrine system that secretes from the endocrine glands. There are secretions of chemical substances which are known as the hormones, which can also communicate. And in this system, the communication is somewhat differently. We will look all those things here, but first we will look all these things one by one. Here are some definitions for you, which is very important, as because when we will study about the reflex actions, when we will study about the different activities related with the nervous system, then at that time we see these terminologies will come again and again. That's why it is better to understand this in a concise way. Like here is the stimulus. The plural form of this stimulus is the stimuli. Any change in the environment capable of causing an active response by the living system is referred to as a stimulus. Very clear. The language is also not so complex. By the influence of a stimuli, some reactions or responses are noticed in the living body. These responses is referred to as irritability, When there is any stimulus applied or come in contact with the body in the living organisms system, then what will happen? There is some irritability. The changing, the response are noticed in the living body. The responses are referred to as irritability. Changes takes place within the living body. Due to as irritability, changes takes place. After irritability, what will happen? There is a changing, and that changing due to the irritability are the responses. एक बेचैनी जिसको कहेंगे, एक अगर कोई स्टिमुलस हम पे अप्लाई हुआ, किसी ऑर्गेनिज्म पे अप्लाई हुआ, या उस किसी स्टिमुलस से हमारा कांटेक्ट हुआ, तो अब उसके किसी ने आपको कह दिया कि भाई आप एक परसेप्शन आपको ये मिला कि भाई आप आपने ये काम ठीक नहीं किया, यू आर नॉट डूइंग दिस वर्क प्रॉपरली एज पर द स्टैंडर्ड विच आई वांट, विच आई रिक्वायर। अभी ये सुनने के बाद आपने इसको सुना, इसमें 2-3 चीज़ें इन्वॉल्व हो गई। देयर आर 2 or 3 थिंग्स आर इन्वॉल्व। हु हैज़ टोल्ड यू दिस थिंग्स? Papa has told you, your teacher has told you. At that time, you have perception. When a friend will tell you, you will perceive it. You have listened it. All the message you have accepted. But under the situations, the situation is now different. When a friend told you, when Papa or the teachers told you, the situation is changed. Your perception, there is some thinking point in the body. There are some thinking parts in the body that will decide how to respond. तो एक बेचैनी सा इरिटेबिलिटी आ गया आपके अंदर। अब उसके उत्तर देने के लिए आपको अगर कहा गया कि ये काम अपने अच्छा से नहीं किया, तो भाई अब एक प्रश्न करेंगे, संतुष्ट करने की कोशिश करेंगे, सेटिस्फाइड करने की कोशिश करेंगे अपने उत्तर से, अपने रिस्पॉन्स से। इरिटेबिलिटी तो आ गया आपके अंदर, परसेप्शन होने के बाद एनालाइज हो गया, इतना क्विक हुआ। ये कम्युनिकेशन सिस्टम, इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल इम्पल्सेस, नर्वस सिस्टम जो वर्क कर रहा वो इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल इम्पल्स के आधार पर वर्क कर रहा। कांटा चुभ गया जब हम नंगे पैर चल रहे हैं, व्हेन वी वॉकिंग barefoot on the garden, at that time my toes comes in contact with the thorns. What will happen? एक कांटा चुभ गया, तो अब वो चुभने के बाद एहसास हुआ, एक बेचैनी सी हुई, इरिटेबिलिटी सा देखने को मिला शरीर के अंदर। अब हमने उसका उत्तर दिया, या उत्तर देने का कई यहाँ पे एस्पेक्ट हैं। देयर आर सो मेनी एस्पेक्ट। मैंने खूब एंगर शो किया, कांटा चुभ गया, चीखने का आवाज़ निकाला, कुछ इस तरह का, मैंने एक्सक्लेमेटरी जो आप वर्ड जानते हैं, उफ का आवाज़ निकल गया, का आवाज़ निकल गया, चीखने का आवाज़ निकल गया। तो ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं ये इस बात को बता रही हैं कि आपके अंदर इरिटेबिलिटी हुआ और आपने उसको रिस्पॉन्स देने की कोशिश किया है। तो ये चीज़ें यहाँ पे बताया गया। तो इस तरह के और भी बहुत सारे हम लोग इसके देखेंगे सिस्टम। अब आइए, लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स हैव सिस्टम विच कंट्रोल एंड कोऑर्डिनेट वेरियस लाइफ एक्टिविटीज़। आपका ये टॉपिक जो था कंट्रोल एंड कोऑर्डिनेशन, अब उसका देखिए यहाँ पे आपको उसका एक you are getting here some concept about that. The title of the topic, living organisms have system which control and coordinate various life activities in general response and behavioral patterns in multicellular organisms including human beings is regulated by 2 integrated systems. So what are these 2 integrated system? These 2 integrated system that controls and coordinates are the number 1 nervous system, it can transmit its stimuli, the impulses through the electrochemical. And the second one, the endocrine system. How it will communicate with the secretions of the chemical substances, that is the considered as the chemical messenger. That's why hormone is also known as the chemical messenger. The chemical substances which are secreted by the different types of endocrine glands are known as the hormones, and this is considered as the chemical messenger that will communicate, coordinate and control the different activities. Now come to know first about the two important points. We shall discuss that points, like number one, we will discuss about the nervous system definitions and its importance, and in the second point we will discuss about the special nervous tissue that comprising the cells like the neuron that compose our nervous system. So here you have seen this structure. Earlier I have told you that with the help of dendrite tips, that means the dendritic tips, the stimulus will be acquired by this tip, and a chemical set off here, and that chemical now change this stimulus, these impulses, into the electrical impulse, and now the electrical impulse travel from dendrites to the cell body. It is the cell body part. This is the part of the cell body. Dendrites, tips of the dendrites acquired the stimulus, and a chemical set off, and with the help of that chemical this impulse is now changed into the electrical impulse. This impulse is now come in contact with the cell body. This is the cell body. And after coming into the cell body, now it will travel all along the pathway, that is the axon, and come to this end part of the nerve ending, or the end part of the axon, and here there is again connection, but that connection with a gap. There is a gap, and that connection with a gap, the connection is like that. Another neuron, may you see here, may I clearly, like there are some other neuron, but here you may see this part, that is the ending part of this nerve end. It is the nerve end. In this way there is no connection at all. In this way there is no connection. The connection is in the another way. What is the way of connection here? The dendrite parts will be here. In this way, this dendrite, that means when there is a impulse, that is the electrical impulse, and that electrical impulse when transferred to the other neuron, here also the impulse will be acquired by the tips of the dendrite. That is why when there is a gap, but here is a gap, after crossing this gap, the impulse impulse transmits to the another neuron, and in this way, here you have seen that a chemical set off, here also chemical set off, and that chemical now with the help that chemical will transmit this impulse to this dendrite. In this way, there is a transmission of electrical impulse to the another neuron with the help of this structure. Here the process which you have seen, the dendrites and their tips, dendrites, tips, acquired stimuli and chemicals set off. So here what I have seen, that tips of the dendrite acquire the stimuli or detect the stimuli, and after the detection of the stimuli, a chemical reaction set off, and this reaction now, this chemical reaction now change this impulse into electrical impulse, and now this chemo electrical impulse, may you call it, come in the cell body, and after this it will go to the axon, and at the end of this there is some chemical, again some chemicals set off that will transmit it to the dendrites of the other neuron with a gap here. In this way, there is a communication completed, the impulse and their journey completed from one neuron to the another neuron. So here in this today's class, we have learnt that there are some movement which are noticeable by us, and that movement in the case of the plant we have seen related with the growth also, but in case of the animal, that movement is the only responses by the animal's body and the body parts. And we have also seen how the nervous system composed by this structure that is known as the neuron, and in the next part we will learn about the reflex actions, their component, their pathway that is known as the reflex arc, and our central nervous system and their two important parts, the brain and the spinal cord.